Got a big one this weekend.
Yeah, yeah. Florida State.
Yeah.
Did y'all play last weekend?
I got beaten by North Carolina.
North Carolina. Y'all playing at Florida State or?
Yes,
Rachel, you ready to get started?
Yeah. What time of the day is that?
Good morning, everyone, and welcome
Game time.
to the October 8th City of Columbia Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. My name is Chuck Sally, and I serve as chair of the board and will be serving today along with my fellow members to my far left, John Gregory, and next to John, Gene Deakins. To my immediate right is George Schaefer, and next to George is Josh Speed. I'd also like to introduce the staff that will be helping us today. Rachel Bailey at the table, along with Hope Hasty, Deputy Zoning Administrator and Deputy Zoning Administrator. Along with that, we've got Unreal Wolf also helping today, and Erica Hyen. The board is charged with hearing applications for special exceptions, variances, and administrative appeals. All testimony is recorded for the record, and anyone wishing to speak will need to be sworn in and come to the podium to speak. No testimony may be taken from the floor. When you come to the podium, state your name and please speak clearly into the microphone because this meeting is being recorded. Applicants with cases before the board are allotted a presentation time of 10 minutes. This time also includes all persons presenting information on behalf of the applicant. This time limit does not include any questions asked by the board or staff regarding the case. Any member of the public may address the board in intervals of 3 minutes or 5 minutes if a spokesperson for an established body of 3 or more people. The applicant then has 5 minutes for rebuttal, and the board reserves the right to amend these limits on a case-by-case basis. For those of you who plan to speak, you must be sworn. If you are here as an applicant or here to speak in any case, please stand at this time and raise your right hand. Do you affirm or attest that the testimony you will give today is the truth and nothing but the truth? Thank you. This time I'll turn the meeting over to Ms. Bailey.
Good morning. First, we did have a few deferrals. Item number 7 for 401 Hayward Street, Utility A. Item 8 for 722 Hayward Street, Utility A. Item 9, 1606 Hayward, Utility A. Item number 10, 1623 Rice Street, Utility A, and item number 11, 1932 Pendle Street, Utility A. This is the second time the applicant has deferred, so this is the last time they can defer without leave of the board.
Good.
First, we review the consent agenda. The board uses the consent agenda to approve non-controversial or routine matters by a single motion and vote. If a member of the board or the general public wants to discuss an item that's on consent, that item is removed and considered during the meeting. The board then approves the remaining consent agenda items. The first item on the consent agenda is the approval of the September 10th, 2019 minutes. Item number 2, case 2019-0063 for 3404 West Beltline Boulevard. This is a variance to the accessory structure setbacks for a water purification building. Item number 3, case 2019-0065 for 420 Howard Street, a special exception to expand an elementary school and daycare facility. Item number 4, case 2019-0066 for 420 Howard Street, a variance to the buffer transition yard requirement for an elementary school and daycare facility. And item number 5, case 2019-0067 for 420 Howard Street, variance to the off-street parking requirement for an elementary school and daycare facility.
Thank you very much. Does anyone in the audience or on the board wish to have any of these items removed from the consent agenda? Please raise your hand right now, or the board will vote on these all together as one vote. I see no one objecting, so we'll move forward. I will take a motion on the consent agenda.
I'd like to make a motion. We approve the consent agenda subject to staff comments.
Second?
I second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
All right, the first item on the regular agenda is under old business. This is for 7015 Mirror Lake Road, a special exception to permit a residential in-home daycare. This one was put on hold previously due to some questions over covenants and whether they apply to the property. After my review, the plat and covenants reference did not reference the applicant's specific parcel. So I do believe there are some new people in the audience who did not get a chance to speak previously.
Understood. So just for clarity, Rachel, the parcel that's part of the application is not subject to the covenants that were brought up at the last meeting?
Correct. So they're not referenced on the parcel's not referenced on the plat either.
Perfect.
At that time.
Okay. Is the applicant here? Would you like to come forward and restate your case, please, ma'am?
Neverland Stitt. I live at 7015 Mirror Lake Drive Road. What should I tell you? I have my paperwork as far as when I went to look at my house before I bought it. There was no homeowners association agreement or nothing in my paperwork, no CCRR, nothing of that nature. When I was looking for a home to purchase, I was looking for a space large enough for a daycare and for my living arrangements. And I didn't get this little covenant letter until the last meeting was, I think, the 8th of September or the 9th. I got it that Monday on my doorstep, and I also got a newsletter on my doorstep the day before the last hearing. I got phone calls telling me if I did get zoned, they still was going to sue me for opening up a daycare. But yet still on one hand, they're telling me there's nothing wrong. We want you to have your business, but don't want the zoning changed. I don't understand the zoning. I'm only trying to make a living. I work now, but I'm about to retire, and I want to retire doing my daycare. These people that was here last time, I've never met them. I've never paid any home association fees. I never knew anything about one. And it wasn't in my paperwork, and I got copies of that. So, I mean, I'm not a lawbreaker. I do know the rules, and if there was a home association attached to my property when I went to look at it, I'd have passed it on. I was looking for looking for something to do my business in, and all this other stuff that was brought up, it just was brought up right before the last meeting.
Right.
And I know with the county, with the state, with the county, there's no way I can have a daycare without having a fenced-in backyard and my kids being supervised at all times.
Right. We have, this board has the 8 items to basically decide on whether this is appropriate or not that were in your application. I believe that we have pretty well covered those in your first application regarding vehicular traffic and fumes, noises, et cetera. If you are good with that, then we can move on to the next, or if you would like to go through those again just to restate those, I'm happy for you to do that as well.
No, because I think my application was, everything was good on my application.
Right. Was anybody on the board not at that meeting today? Everybody was here.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that everybody had a chance to hear that.
I have a copy of my contract and everything that I signed in
Right.
purchasing my home.
Okay. Do you have anything further that you'd like to add to any
Well,
of the criteria?
as far as me seeing a daycare, a business, bringing down the neighborhood, I don't see that. I mean, because I'm in my area, my kids, in my backyard in the summertime or whatever, but I'm a responsible, hardworking woman. I don't see why my business would interfere with anybody. It's not like the children's going to be out running across the street to a lake by themselves or walking down the street. They made it sound like I'm an alien finna drop little alien nets down the street in the community. I mean, I've never had this problem before with a daycare.
Very well. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone here to speak for or against this application? Please. approach the podium.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be very brief. I'm Ron Childress, resident of Strathaven Forest. I've spoken to you before. I just would draw the board's attention to my second submission, which included pictures of the area showing exactly how close this property is to 7011 Mirror Lake, which I happen to own. It's a snake pit. It can't be developed because it's the spring that feeds the pond. There's nothing that can be done to control that piece of property. The thing I want to bring to the board's attention once again is the liability that as the owner of that parcel and of the pond would be affected if this special exception is granted. I raised other issues, but counsel for the Homeowners Association is here today, and I don't want to take up his time. In fact, I'd like to surrender my time to him because I'm sure he has a great deal to say. You heard from Virginia Sanders last time. She's not here today. She's a member of our community and quite a fighter for communities. She's fought many battles, I think, before this board itself. And she made a very good point that granting a frivolous special exception like this very often is the first step to destroy a neighborhood, because one follows another and the whole neighborhood can be taken apart. We stand on that position, and if I were going to attack and destroy a neighborhood, the one thing I would suggest, don't pick one that's full of retired colonels and senior NCOs. They know something about fighting back, and chances are they will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Toby Ward, I'm an attorney, and I'm here on behalf of the Strathaven Forest Neighborhood Association. It is a duly incorporated South Carolina corporation, and a few things to touch on. First of all, I did examine the title, and the applicant is correct. There are no applicable subdivision restrictions. There are some on that property, but they don't offer any guidance on this situation nor serve as the statutory bar. So I want to be clear about that. However, as this board knows, the right to operate a business on a piece of property, to use that piece of property for a business, is subject to regulation by the authority granted to you by City Council. And that's what we're here for today, is the special exception. What I want to, before I give you my prepared remarks, which I gave you a copy, so I hope I'm not too redundant, but I do want you to remember that City Council said that you may grant a special exception. They didn't say you shall if they touch all 8 points. It is may. So I want you to bear that in mind as you deliberate on this important issue to Ms. Stitt and to the residents of Strathaven Forest. First of all, and I think most important, is the authority granted to you by City Council is in 17-265. And the very first point of 17-265 says that the Board of Zoning Appeals, quote, shall receive a determination before granting a special exception, and that's the DSS determination. I submit that if the applicant hasn't submitted a determination by DSS as called for by the ordinance, then you do not, even with the awesome discretion you don't have the authority to overlook that. And were you to overlook that, then that would be clearly erroneous. Second of all, the fifth item in 17-265 of the ordinance, honestly, I don't know what to make of this one, because I don't think there is a city board of health, because I looked on the website and I didn't find one, and I've never heard of one, but it says that the daycare shall meet the requirements of the city board of health. There's no evidence to support that the City Board of Health has its requirements have been met. I suppose the board could say that there are no requirements because there's no city board of health, but it is an issue. The third point I raise, and I want you to consider if you would please, is that this proposed use is not a daycare in the sense of the word daycare, because this applicant intends to operate 24 hours a day. And a daycare, by definition, I submit would be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And the ordinance speaks to protecting adjacent uses from potentially incompatible characteristics arising from daycare centers. I don't believe that it is appropriate ever to establish a 24-hour business in a residentially zoned neighborhood. And so I would ask you to either deny the application as presented or grant it conditioned on daycare operation. Finally, the last 2 points, query whether this is a home occupation by virtue of the fact that it doesn't say that it isn't. The application itself has a little defect in it. So to wrap up here, and I appreciate you letting me go over my allotted 3 minutes.
Still have a little bit of time. That was just the yellow light.
Oh, I'm still in the yellow zone. Live there often. You don't have to grant the special exception. I don't believe you currently have the authority because you don't have the DSS determination letter. And if you do decide to overlook those 2 points, I would ask that you condition the special exception and make it a daycare, not a 24-hour operation. Thank you, and I appreciate your indulgence.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Rachel, I have a question before we go to the next application about I think this was brought up last time. I'm trying to refresh my memory about is that in the DSS ordinance for daycare, or is that in our ordinance, or where is that?
Our ordinance does say that. However, DSS sends them here first. So approvals are conditioned on DSS signing off before any business licenses are issued. So it's a staff condition that's built into any approvals.
Gotcha. So,
Because DSS often looks to our orders as well as to how many children an applicant can have at the daycare as well.
Should the ordinance read differently?
I believe the new ordinance does. That will take effect next year.
I see. Okay.
I mean, I just think it's hard to grant someone before if DSS, the governing body, to get her approval is going to send them here first. So something with the processing, like the timing of the process.
I agree, but it is what it is. Right now, they do not accept applications until they have been certified as a legal entity.
So for now, Rachel, we need this decision here needs to happen before they can move forward DSS as ordinance for this case and any case moving forward.
That's the way it's been for as long as I've been in zoning. It's just DSS sends them to us first.
Okay.
I have a related question. So is DSS the entity that will determine how many children can be cared for in the house?
They do, or they look to our orders. So if our orders state a specific number of children, DSS goes with that.
Okay. And so right now, in the staff comments, the only thing that I see limiting the number of children is the square footage of the play area in the backyard. So it's about 25 children, if I'm reading that correctly. But that just really says how many can be outside at one time, not how many can be in the property. Is that right?
I believe the applicant stated last month how many children she intends to have. I had those in last month's note. It might be worth having her come back up to address that.
Yeah, can we get you to come back up at the very end, and then we'll make sure that that way we can address everything at once. Perfect. Is anybody else here? I know we heard a lot of testimony at the last meeting, so if anybody else would like to add anything, we're glad to hear it, but I think Mr. Ward and Mr. Childress summed up the position of the homeowners pretty well.
I mean, I think just with the first thing, that
I think
almost.
I think there's this person who wants to.
Oh, go ahead.
Mr. Childress, you can't talk from the bench.
You'll need to approach the podium.
You have to approach the microphone. Please state your name.
My name is Mark McGill. I live on Dunvegan Drive, the street that dead ends into the proposed daycare. Something came to my mind when you were talking about the traffic and the number of people. Well, besides the lot on the right being a swamp that Mr. Childress owns, which is, snakes live there and turtles, etc., the house on the other side, opposite side, has now been purchased by an investor who is renting out rooms to college students. So sometimes there's 3 cars in the yard, sometimes there's 4, sometimes there's 5, sometimes they spill into the street when they have their college house parties, which is a terrible thing for the house behind me has 5 bedrooms, and there's usually 6 cars there every morning now, where my Colonel Dalton used to live. So now we're going to have a swamp, a daycare center, a college flop house, and they're redoing Leesboro Road to make it 6 lanes. Just tore down 2 houses. There's going to be extra traffic from building the road. There's only 2 entrances to Strathaven. One's going to probably be temporarily closed. And I've lived there over 50 years. It's never had businesses and, people renting rooms and this, that, and the other. And it brings down your property values. I've spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on my house and my yard. So I just think it's a bad idea. And between the swamp and the college kids and 24-hour daycare, it's just going to obviously bring our property values down. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, sir. Anyone else? The applicant, please come back up to the bench.
Who said anything about 24-hour daycare? Number 2, my house is next door to my neighbors. True enough, they got their cars over there. I have a carport and an extra side in my driveway. So I have a 2-way driveway. I can make that a double garage anytime I choose to. So as far as traffic, no. And DSS is only going to allow me to have no more than 6 or 5 kids at a time. My hours will be, I think I have, let's just say, I'll say 6 o'clock till midnight. Those was my normal hours when I lived in Cleveland and had my daycare.
6
That's first
a.m.
and second shift. Yes.
6 a.m. until midnight.
Now I might have a couple of kids that come at 7 p. to 7 a. because I work at the hospital, and so that's 1 or 2 kids in the evening for overnight. It's not like a daycare center, as you have it's not nothing like that. I'm not ready for that, but that's my prayer. But as far as traffic and kids going across the street, playing at a lake and all this stuff, no, these are babies. Babies I even got my great nephew coming. He's only 3 months old. Babies. DSS, this is the first step. The zoning is the first step. And then the fire marshal, I have to make an appointment with the fire marshal, and then I take that paperwork to DSS. DSS has to approve everything. My backyard, my living space, they have to approve everything. Everything goes by them. They're not going to approve for me to have my kids in the front yard run across the street to a lake. They're not going to approve that. They're not going to approve that. They're going to approve my backyard because I have a big backyard. Do I have play equipment yet? No. It's a process. But that's my goal. They have play equipment for them next summer because they're babies now. I have 6 babies waiting for me. I can have a helper if I choose to have one, but 3 infants, I'm gonna need a helper. I have one lined up. She's right there. I have a letter from my neighbor straight across the street from me, right there. A letter from her, if you want to read it or you want me to read it. But it's all ultimately up to DSS whether I get approved for this or not. And I think you do the zoning first and the fire marshal first, because with DSS, they work with you. It's a process. They determine, like, let's just say, if I don't have smoke detectors, which I do, I don't have carbon monoxide protectors, which I do, I don't have a fire extinguisher, which I do, they would say, well, this is what you got to have done. This got to be checked off. We'll make an appointment to come back again. It's a longer process with them. I think that's why they send you to the zoning board first.
Ms. Stitt, you testified earlier that you hadn't met any of the neighborhood association members. Have you made any attempt to do that?
Not the way I work. I don't even know where they live. I don't know who they are. Miss Virginia put her number on my door. I don't know where she lives. She put a number on my door and she called me twice. She gave me a number to an ex-councilman. I don't know where he lives. I don't know where. I think I've seen the gentleman go around the corner in a white truck, I think. I'm not sure. But don't nobody give a name. I don't know where they live.
Well, I think it's important when you're asking for a special exception and a use that's a little bit out of the ordinary for the neighborhood to meet with the surrounding neighbors and the neighborhood association to try to iron out any of these concerns before you come before a board like this.
I didn't know there was a covenant. I didn't know there was an association. I didn't know anything about the newsletter. I've been there since December.
Understood, but again, I think when you're asking for something like this in the neighborhood, you want to have them on your side, or at least a chance to air out your concerns, their concerns, before you come here in front of us. So I think it would have been wise for you to have done that.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you very much for your testimony.
So, and I do want to clarify as well, the definition of daycare within the ordinance does not allow 24-hour care anyway, so her hours would have to be less than that
Right.
to meet zoning.
I believe that was be 12 hours, right? 6 to 12, 6 a.m. to 12 a.m.
It just says for less than a 24-hour period, so, because it turns into a different use if the children are staying overnight.
I just have an issue with the way the ordinance is written, because if DSS is going to require them to come here first as the first step in the process, I feel like they're going to be the governing body for her business. I mean, yeah, I think the ordinance should be changed to reflect that.
Okay,
That might be a different discussion, but,
it is. Your concern has been heard.
yep.
Well, it's challenging because, I can speak from personal experience. The first 5 years I lived in Columbia, I lived adjacent to a daycare provider. And I can say without a doubt that it had an impact in terms of environmental factors like noise, in terms of living adjacent to that type of facility. So, but it's a very different thing to talk about. It's hard to make a determination on whether it's going to have an impact like that without even knowing how many children we're talking about, what age, and we don't get that information except from the applicant. So it's hard to make a determination just on criteria number 2 without having really specific information.
Yeah, I feel like DSS would have a role here in playing the hours that she's open, certainly screening and fencing off the lot to help keep snakes out, as some of the property owners. I think those kind of things can be mitigated. Her property is not technically in the neighborhood. While it's wise, I think, to talk to the neighbors, you want to be a good neighbor. I don't know if that was technically a requirement. But I think a lot of the concerns can be mitigated as DSS walks them through the process.
I don't know, John. I really think that's a separate discussion. I think our job here as the board is to determine whether a business or daycare like this in a residential neighborhood is appropriate for this location. I mean, if if the applicant is granted the special exception from us, then yes, DSS will air all those issues and determine that. But I think our job is more to decide whether this is an appropriate location for this type of use. Regardless of what DSS says about it, I think that'll take care of itself.
Well, if that's the case, and I think some of the concerns about the rodents and stuff needs to be taken up with DSS, not here.
Maybe, neighborhood association can submit anything that they would like to us for discussion. Whether or not it's appropriate or not doesn't really matter. Our job is to determine whether or not a business like this is appropriate on this property. And, you run through the 8 criteria that we use to grant a special exception, and it's my opinion that this case is probably going to fall short of in many of the criteria.
So, and just had someone whisper in my ear that there's they're having issues hearing you all, so make sure you're getting close.
Okay, good. We've had discussion on this matter. I think everybody's carefully considered the 8 qualifying issues, and I believe that we're ready for a vote. If somebody would like to make a motion.
I will. I'd like to make a motion that we deny the special exception to establish a in-home daycare facility for the property.
I'll second that. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Opposed?
1 opposed. Thank you.
All right. The next item on the agenda is item number 12, case 2019-0061 for 1039 Byron Road, special exception to permit a residential in-home daycare. The applicant is present and is welcome to come to the microphone.
Morning.
Morning.
My wife right now is stepped out. She's pregnant, so she should be back here in just a second. But I'm Chris. I'm a co-applicant on this, and my wife Rachel, who is pregnant right now in December. What we're looking to do is when we have our child, we're looking to have 2 to 4 child daycare in our home. So we're trying to keep it small here. One thing I did want to go into here in a little bit is some of those other concerns that were brought up about the DSS process. I think I could clarify that just a little bit. But right now my wife, she's an OT with pediatric care, so an occupational therapist. She works with kids with disabilities and things like that. So very, very good job for her to be able to work with other children that were looking to have possibly disabilities and things like that. It's kind of what we're looking to provide a little bit specialty to having a couple other kids in our house. Really, when we're talking about impact to the neighborhood, we're really talking about a 2 to 4 child family. That's really what we're looking at when we're looking at impact. We've had a number of different objections. In fact, I'm blown away by the number of objections that we've had just based on what our proposal is and what is in front of you. I want to appreciate your time the best I can and kind of go real quickly over some of those. One of them is the zoning objection and making it a precedence for other businesses coming into the neighborhood. We've been in contact with Erica Jane, the associate planner down here, and she actually sent us an email back on that, which we forwarded to one of our neighbors and left it with another neighbor that kind of brought up those concerns for us. And basically the answer to asking whether or not that's going to create a precedence in the neighborhood is covered here. So she said, typically residential districts can have businesses that have patrons. In-home daycares and daycare facilities, so like a commercial establishment, in a residential zone, such as another house in our street, 400 Byron Road, are a special exception. We would not allow our in-home daycare to run as a commercial facility we would be an accessory use to our main residential. So they brought up kind of other occupations that are used, like home offices, home daycare, things like other things that don't require special exceptions, such as people that do things like for Soda City and stuff like that. So that's really where the part on the precedence really goes into. Everyone has to go through this board process. Everyone has to get reviewed. So to imply that there's a precedence is kind of not from what I read in the documents that were sent to us in section 17258. Additionally, we had some people sign a petition, basically. And in that petition, one of the lines that is inaccurate is saying, allowing a special exception sets a precedent for other exemptions to the zoning ordinance. And as I said, everything we got from Erica, the associate planner, doesn't follow on that. Additionally, for the actual the zone or the DSS portion of this, so there's two different things. You can be registered, or you can be or you can have license. A license allows you up to 12 children in your house. Registered, which is what we are currently pursuing, is up to 6 children. Now, obviously, that's going to be too much for my wife with a brand new baby to deal with. So we're looking to have 2 to 4 children in our home, and that is the main part. The other part of this, which I'm not really sure, I know it was in probably the files that you guys have, some things that people have been objecting to is the fact that we do Airbnb out of 2 rooms in our house right now. That's something that we do currently. We've never had any complaints. We've never had any issues. We have a lot of families coming in for Fort Jackson graduations, USC, things like that. So we've never had any real complaints besides people don't like the idea of it. Now, we're going to have to follow DSS rules, so we won't be doing Airbnb in our house when we have our in-home daycare, because any adult that it comes into the home has to be fingerprinted and has to be registered. So that's something we'll be stopping. We're doing that right now, just until we get the daycare going and my wife stops working. So that's really a non-issue as far as that goes. You know, I have a lot that I have to worry about. You know, I worry about my family, I worry about taking care of them, I worry about my wife actually, you know, having something to do while she's, you know, staying at home with our child. This is one way that we came up with, that she thought she could give back and stay busy during that. Additionally, you know, I worry about, you know, me going to the job, me getting deployed, me doing things like that, and making sure my wife, you know, has a support system, has something that she can do while I'm gone. Really, a lot of the complaints and stuff, it just blows me away that people are so worried about 2 to 4 children, you know, in my home, when I can't imagine how that could have any more impact than, you know, than a family with 2 to 4 kids or something like that. So that is all I had. Did the board have any questions for me before moving forward?
I think you've covered pretty much all of the explanation on the criteria. Okay. Thank you so much for your testimony. Is there anyone else here to speak?
I'm sorry, I actually did have one more thing I just thought of. We did actually contact the unofficial association in our road, so we don't have an official one, but it's like a neighborhood association. So we actually sent an email out to them, and they had a board. So we contacted Beth Corley, the president, co-president. I could read this whole thing. But basically they're saying that they don't really fall within their scope or mission, so they're going to remain neutral, neither supporting nor opposing as we go forward with our zoning request. So they're kind of staying out of the issue and just letting the board make the best decision. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here to speak for or against this application? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Blanche Holiday. I appreciate y'all letting me come up here. I don't even really know where to start after all of that. First thing I would like to find out is, where is the zoning sign supposed to be placed in a yard? When you place the zoning sign, where is it supposed to go? Anybody know? Because I called the office and
There's no specific requirement for where the sign's supposed to go.
Is it supposed to be
There's a requirement per length, but all it says is it's supposed to be visible. So if you can see the yellow sign, then it's posted correctly.
Okay, well, my question is, are people supposed to trespass into someone's yard to see the sign?
The key of the sign is to see the large Z in the yellow, and then it's supposed to encourage people to call the zoning department.
Well, I think that most people don't think they're supposed to call. I think that most people think that they are supposed to be able to see what the zoning is without having to encroach on someone's yard. And I have a text here from someone who said, just want y'all to know that you've got this thing going on, but we can't read it because it's way back in the yard. So there were a lot of people who came to me as the next door neighbor and asked, what's going on? We don't know. And so I didn't really know what was going on other than what I saw on the sign. Nobody wanted to trespass into their yard. So I think you would have had even more vocal opposition had people had the opportunity to know what was going on based on their sign. The other thing is, how many children does this cover? 2 to 4. So when you grant this exemption, does that mean that that's all they can ever have? Or does DSS give them the right to have 6 or 12 or however many? And at that point, what if they decide, well, we really like to do this, and Meadowfield or Hammond is right around the street, we want to start doing aftercare. Once y'all set this exemption.
One thing that this board can do, if they make if they grant a special exception, is to put stipulations on that, such as the hours of operation or the number of customers that they would be able to attend there.
So this board sets that.
We could do that.
DSS doesn't set that.
DSS would, but we can also make a stipulation if it's a special exception.
Well, that's helpful. And he talks about the Airbnb and the hours of operation. Who's going to police the daycares? You said run 7 to 7 or something like that earlier. Who's going to police whether or not they're running Airbnb out of their house during those hours? I mean, you know, you can have a pedophile, you can have a sex offender, and they're going to have small children, and if they're keeping kids from 7 to 7, what's the check-in time for their Airbnb on Friday? And they did specifically tell me recently that they very possibly will have weekend Airbnb when their child gets to be a couple of months old. So they're just going to let somebody walk into their home at 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon when their daycare runs to whatever time it is, and then they're going to have kids on Monday morning, and the Airbnb doesn't leave until 10 o'clock on Monday morning. That doesn't seem very safe to me.
Okay, thank you for your testimony.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Can I speak for the rest of these people?
Sure. If you,
Okay, well,
if you have
speaking
3 or more, if they
I'm
raise their
speaking for
hands.
these people
Okay.
here.
Yeah, you got more time then.
Okay. He got a petition, well, we got a petition too, and we've got over 60 signatures on the petition from people in the neighborhood who are adamantly opposed. They're not only opposed to the daycare, they're opposed to the Airbnb as well, for the same reasons. They don't think it's appropriate to have any business in our neighborhood. And I sent y'all some information. It was the original deed to this tract of land back from the early 1960s. It clearly states each lot shall be used only for private, single-family residential purposes, period. Period. We actually have some members here today who are original signers of this property. My mother is here. She's been in the house for a very long time, 57 years. Ms. Hamilton has been here, Mr. Hamilton. They are original owners of these homes. They had the expectation when they bought this property that businesses would not be allowed. You have the right to give the special exception, but as the lawyer said, you don't have to grant it. I don't want a business in my neighborhood, period. You get one business, you're going to get another. It puts a chink in the armor. I told these young people recently, they moved into this neighborhood according to what they told me, because it was a nice, quiet, safe neighborhood. And I told them, you don't know how hard it is to keep a neighborhood nice, quiet, and safe over 60 years. I don't know how long you've lived in your neighborhoods. But it's taken a lot. We've had this same issue come up several times in the past, not just a daycare, but other businesses that wanted to open. And we've had to come before y'all and fight to keep these things out because we want a nice, quiet, safe neighborhood. We don't want businesses in our neighborhood. You give a spot zoning, which is exactly what this is, it benefits only them. It has no benefit to the rest of the neighborhood at all, and that's not right, particularly for the people who signed up 60 years ago to live in a neighborhood that isn't going to have any businesses. Let's see, what else did y'all want me to say? You know, I don't know who put the sign where it was, but that's been a real...
Okay, I think we got the sign
been a real
issue.
problem.
That's a good point. I don't want to cut you off, but the time's up, and I think you've really made a very clear, concise case. So I think we're good on that. Is there anybody else in the audience care to say anything for or against this? Okay. Anybody, with the applicant, please return up. You have... You can't speak from there, sir. Right. You can come up to the podium, but you can't speak from the floor.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm Jason Rapp. I live at 1034 Byron Road, across the street from the Tinsleys. We're concerned also with Hammond Academy right behind their backyard. That's the lower school right there behind their yard. I've been in that neighborhood I'm 47. I lived on Wordsworth when I was 12 years old. Came back to that neighborhood because of what it is, what we grew up in. Blanche has been there for 57 years. There's a lot of us that have come back. Baxter, who lives down the road, his grandmother owned the house he lived in. So that's why we want to keep the neighborhood the way we have it. We fought very hard. We worked very hard to keep our houses up. We worked very hard to keep our property values up. So we appreciate y'all's consideration on this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Right, so I mean, I get 10 minutes since we had two different sections of time.
Yeah,
or-
but I would like, I'm never, what's with the B and B? That's not a
What is
part
it?
of what we're looking, but what is, are y'all running an Airbnb?
So basically, we've done it out of another property too. We have done it before in the past. So in our house, we have 2 bedrooms that will occasionally have people stay through Airbnb, which is like a short-term rental. It's completely legal. We've only had nice people. We've never had any direct complaints until we put the sign in our yard. And then other things were being brought up unrelated to our in-home daycare. As I said before, well, can I just go through some of the objections real quick, and I'll address them as I go? So basically, for that sign, that yellow sign, we didn't place the sign. The sign was placed in our yard, so we just left it. We didn't know what we were supposed to do. So we had a neighbor come up and knock on our door and ask us about the sign, and I discussed it with him. So he let us know that we was there and discussed it. So no trespassing there if UPS comes on and knocks on my door, you know what I mean? So knocked on our door, asked us about it, I explained it. Some of the scenarios that were brought up, completely made up. Things can happen bad anywhere you go, things can happen, walking down the street. I'm from New York City originally, and things happen bad all the time, but you take the precautions that you want. For Airbnb specifically, in our house, we have a lock on our bedroom door, we have a lock on our office door. For the people that stay with us, we have Ring doorbells, so we know who's coming and going, when they're coming and going on all the doors. So we take precautions. We're not just having anybody come over. We have a government ID verified through Airbnb. We have their credit card information verified through Airbnb, so we're not just accepting anyone. And all the people that we've met have been great, honestly. Like they've been awesome. So as I said, we're gonna stop that when the daycare starts. I don't know what scenarios my neighbors we're going to do, but we're going to follow the law. We're not going to have anybody in our home when we have children in our home. That includes our parents, because they're not going to be fingerprinted. We're not, because they don't live in the area. That includes friends. So we're going to follow the laws of the DSS and of the the county. And right now there's no it's not illegal to do Airbnb in your house, so we're going to follow those laws. Our neighbor also said that we should have just probably done this daycare without getting zoned properly. And the regulations state if you have 2 children in your house and they're from different families, you have to get zoned and you have to get registered through the state. We could have 2 kids that were from the same family, and that would be fine. But to follow the law, if we happen to have 2 kids there at the same time, we want to follow the law, and we want to do things the right way, which is why we're here today. I'm just, some of the objections that were brought up, I'm not too sure what is too noisy about 2 to 4 children in our house. I can't imagine, especially if the board stipulates that we can only have up to 4 children, how that could possibly be too noisy. As I stated, we can see on the board right there, our backyard is right on Hammond's parking lot. So you can see there's a field there, and there's the school right there. So we have a playground. You can hear kids playing all the time. You can hear when they have games and stuff like that. They're over the loudspeakers. So that's already something that's a part of the neighborhood. So that is not even the level that we're going to be on. We have a safe, we put up a brand new fence, a 6-foot fence. So, we are taking all the precautions, and it fits right into the neighborhood. In fact, I don't know if all these made it to the board or not, but we have a letter from Stacy Walden, who lives in our neighborhood also, and she said, my name's Stacy Walden, and I'm writing to express my support for Rachel and Christopher Tinsley and their desire to run a small daycare business from their home on 1039 Byron Road. While my family does not live on the same street, we are in the same community and consider them neighbors. Additionally, the Tinsleys are part of our church family where we have had opportunity to get to know them. Chris and Rachel are conscientious, thoughtful, and sensitive to those around them. While I can understand their immediate neighbors' concern of being overrun with a small business, this does not seem to me to be what's going on here. Their desire to host and care for 2 other children in addition to their own child is not unreasonable for our neighborhood, or for a neighborhood that is full of families with multiple children. We have 3, and 2 schools within blocks of the Tinsleys' home. It speaks to the Tinsleys' integrity that they have gone through the route of zoning when the path of least resistance would have been to simply care for 2 babies without a lot of fuss. They aren't hanging a daycare sign. Rachel just wants to be at home with her baby and give 2 working moms a quiet, like-minded home in which to be nurtured during the day. They have gone this route because they want to be above reproach. I'm grateful they are in our community. I understand there's a hearing on October 8th at 10 a.m. I'm a licensed professional counsel and will be working at that time. Otherwise, I would attend to support the Tinsleys. I am sending this email in lieu of being there to speak on my behalf. Are there any other questions for me?
Where does Miss Walden live?
Rachel, do you know the road? It's about 6 blocks away further into the neighborhood. So we're in Hammond. If you go, I'm sorry, I'm pointing to the sign, but if you go further in, it's further into the neighborhood, about 6 blocks away. So they're in the same south Meadowfield. I have one more letter too, if the board would like to hear it.
Do we have that letter, Rachel?
Sounds good.
If they were sent to Erica, they would have
We had the
been
first one, I know.
provided.
You have the one from Lindsay Purdy?
Yes, we have that one.
Cool. You want to hear it? Okay. All right. To whom this may concern, this letter is to provide reasons that Rachel Tinsley should be allowed to open her daycare business in her home. I'm Lindsay Purdy, a teacher at AC Flora High, a parent of a 6-year-old daughter at Kaufman Road Elementary School, and my husband and I are expecting our 2nd baby in February 2020. I know Rachel and Chris from our small group at Riverside Community Church. Rachel is hardworking, honest, and will provide a safe and fun, nurturing environment for the children she'll be caring for. This business will not change the family-friendly environment of South Meadowfield neighborhood. If anything, it will enhance it. Downtown Columbia has a huge shortage of quality daycares for infants to preschool-aged children. I had a hard time getting my daughter into daycare when we moved here from Myrtle Beach and when she was an infant in 2013. I sought in-home daycare as well as daycare at a church or school building. It took several months to get in. In addition, I am currently on several waiting lists for my unborn child. I would love to see more people like Rachel opening daycares in their homes. Thank you, Lindsay Purdy.
Any questions from the board?
Question for staff, please. Earlier, we heard testimony regarding a potential covenant in the deed and residential use only. Could you speak to that a little bit and what sort of role that
They
plays
were
in our
saying they were to
decision-making?
be single-family residential lots, no duplexes, no multifamily was to come into the neighborhood.
Would
So I did not,
your
it
opinion
did
be
not
it
have
doesn't
the
really
language
apply, or-
regarding. Zoning does not have anything currently in the ordinance related to an Airbnb. So we do not have any enforcement mechanism. They're just required to go through code enforcement if they fall under their rental permit requirements. So, but zoning.
But just to
does
be
not
clear, the
consider it
applicant
to
has
be-
said that you would not be running an Airbnb at the same time that you would be running a daycare, period, right?
Correct, yeah.
We just don't address it at this point, so it's not considered
And-
not in the table of uses.
And also, in that petition that was signed, there was nothing specifically saying, we're against Airbnb, but also that has really nothing to do with what we're asking for this time.
So so the deed, it says on 4, and this is a question for Rachel again, it says all lots in said tract shall herein and described as residential lots, and no trade, business, industrial activity, commercial activity of any nature whatsoever shall be carried out by any firm, person, or corporation on any lot or lots in the subdivision hereinafter described.
I did not see that on the deed.
It seems like to me that's just the same
Are
thing
you
as a
looking
deed
at
restriction.
the Mirror Lake deed or
I think so.
or are you looking at the Byron Road deed? Because the Mirror Lake deed had that.
I'm looking at the declaration of restrictive covenants for, I'm in this,
Just to know, we won't be a commercial facility.
yeah, I mean, it's in the application that, I mean, it's in this case.
You're looking at,
Can I look at what you guys are looking at? I'm not sure what that is, what you guys are referring to.
That's from Mirror Lake.
Well, I am, clearly this is not the Mirror Lake one, right? Yep, it is, sorry.
Oh, that sounded familiar. Yeah, that was from the previous.
Okay.
I mean, this
was
one
on
does
the-
say
I
each
was-
lot
my bad,
shall
I
be
was on the
used
wrong
only for
one.
private, single-family residential purposes. I mean, there is a statement in that. Is this application in any way not in alignment with that statement? Or does this not govern in the same way that the covenant from the first? I mean, how are we supposed to think about this?
With the covenants, the ones that I usually see talk about trades, businesses, home occupations, and commercial. For me, in my review of it, it was stating that it could not go above single-family structures on those lots. The lots were meant to be single-family residential lots. They were not meant to be duplexes, multifamily, more than one dwelling unit per parcel.
Got it. Thank you.
So just to clarify, just so I'm understanding, so I mean, we're coming here for a special exception. So like the real question, isn't, to me, what it seems like to me isn't the objections to, people don't want the new zoning, but that doesn't seem to be the real question. The question is this going to have any sort of impact on the neighborhood? Having 2 to 4 children in the neighborhood, that's like saying a family of 2 to 6 children is going to, destroy the neighborhood. Is just how I'm understanding it right now, because from what I'm hearing from the deed, that refers to the type of structure that is built.
I also just want to clarify that this is a special exception. It's not a rezoning, so it's remaining a single-family residential parcel. But within the RS zoning districts, there are limited government, educational, and non-commercial and recreational uses that can come into those single-family residential districts, but they require the special exception. So it pulls this out of a home occupation, for example, because those don't even have to come before the board, but because this falls under one of those non-commercial and or recreational uses, or it could be argued an educational use as well, it comes in under the special exception in the table of permitted uses.
So just to be clear while the applicant's here, you would be agreeable as a stipulation of this this special exception to limit your hours from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and no more than 4 children?
Correct. Any other questions? Thank you for your time.
Please approach the podium.
One other thing in that deed on number 7, it says, "No use shall be made of any lot nor any part thereof, nor of any improvement on the same, which shall constitute a nuisance or injure the value of any of the other lots." You've got 60 people who have signed a petition that says they don't want it because they're afraid it's going to injure the value of their lots. Also, what happens if they move? Does this exception stay with this home? Can the next person come in and open a business, another daycare? Is that something that you have to include if you approve it?
Very good question, Rachel.
Special exception or a variance runs with the land.
So it stays.
If a daycare were to come into the same location, they would be held to the same stipulations and conditions that these applicants were.
So, once the zoning is changed, it is changed in forever and always. That's not fair to the people that live there now.
Unless it goes vacant for 12 months or more. If it goes vacant or they don't operate a business for 12 months or more.
Okay, well, that leads me to one other thing.
It has to come back.
They're not going to be here all that long. They have no vested interest in this neighborhood. He told me, point out, he has no vested interest in the neighborhood. That he's going to be moving, he's going to be relocating either with the military, or if he gets out, he'll go somewhere else. This just isn't right. He doesn't have to work to keep the neighborhood up like the rest of us do. And we have worked very, very hard to keep the neighborhood up. But I think the original deed that Louis Mosley got with the city, it clearly states it's a single-family residential use only. It may stay single-family residential, but he's running a business. He's not running one, he's running two. Thank you.
Discretion that you had previously.
Please state your name.
Mark Welchel, 1042 Wordsworth Drive. I'm on the adjacent streets. The discretion you have is almost absolute by City Council to do this. And as the attorney was saying, you may do this. You don't have to do it. And if you looked at the original deed, it does state that in a nuisance or a botherment, and Mr. Schaefer here already mentioned that he will live next to a daycare center, and there is an adverse effect of this. This neighborhood, though Hammond is there, that predates that decision was made decades ago when they built Hammond. The rest of this neighborhood is pristine if you look at the map. There's no businesses. It's all single-family owned homes. And 60-something of the neighbors, some of them elderly, have signed this. They don't want it. So I ask you to use the same discretion you used previously. The cases are almost identical. If you look at it, except I would say that our neighborhood's even more pristine than the previous one. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. I think you should come back up one more time if you would like to address your intentions about staying or not staying in the neighborhood.
Well, first off, from what I understand, if somebody else does come in, they're going to be stuck to the stipulation of 4 children, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., based on the land and what you guys decide today. So it's not going to be some sort of crazy rezoning. Also, from the email I got from Erica, there's other businesses in the neighborhood. So, I mean, it's not like it's completely pristine, but they're operating at home and nobody even knows because there's no impact on the neighborhood. So that's how I'm approaching it. I don't know when I'm going to leave. The military tells me when I'm going to leave. I potentially could leave till next December. I could potentially leave another year after that. Regardless, I don't see the issue. If it's 4 children and 4 kids, and it's the stipulations of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. We share, like I said, the backyard with Hammond, so it's not like we're not a good fit with the neighborhood. There's tons of parents I'm sure would love to have their children at a daycare there and have their other children go to Hammond. So it fits in pretty well. Any other questions for me? Did I clarify that?
Do we know what the nature of the other in-home businesses are in the neighborhood?
According to the email from Erica, they says in-home daycares and daycare facilities are commercial established in a residential zone such as 400 Byron Road are a special exception. So According to this, it says there's another in-home daycare on 400 Bar Road. I don't know the exact validity or if that was something in the past, but you know, I don't think that that necessarily is the, you know, an argument to have our business come in, because, you know, looking on a case-by-case basis, you have to answer, are we crazy here to say that 2 of 4 children is going to have an impact on the neighborhood? Because I can't imagine that. I can't imagine a scenario where it would, so. Sure they had to go through the same process.
Thank you, sir.
No problem. Thank you.
Any discussion on the board?
Well, this is an interesting one. Looking at this aerial photo here, you know, this lot is contiguous to Hammond School. I don't know how many children go to Hammond now. It's got to be close to 1,000. So, you know, the applicant's proposing this very small business with 2 to 4 children. Hours seem to align with Hammond School somewhat, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So I like the fact that this particular case does seem to have a well thought out plan. You know, so running through the criteria for special exception, our job is to determine whether or not they meet them. Running through them, in my opinion, I'm not sure what one they don't meet. I hear the neighborhood's opposition, and I think you brought up some good points and understand your concerns, but 2 to 4 children in a normal business type hours on a property adjacent to Hammond School. If you look at the criteria for the special exception 1 through 8, I'm asking anyone on the board, what ones do they not meet?
Well, I have a concern about the criteria number 5, knowing that there's another daycare facility in the neighborhood already. Brings up whether or not a second, this application creates a concentration of similar types of special exception uses in the neighborhood. And I'm, you know, just looking at criteria number 7, which was the criteria I had concerns about on the first application that we heard from. I don't see any difference. For me, I think when we're thinking about special exceptions in residential neighborhoods, not all lots and properties are created equal. I think properties that have adjacencies with edge conditions of the neighborhood, properties that are sort of on major thoroughfares getting into the neighborhood may be more appropriate. This house is deeply embedded in the neighborhood. It does have an adjacency with a school, but that's on the back side of the property. This house and its presence in the neighborhood is on a residential street, and everybody's experience of this house is completely residential, deeply embedded in the neighborhood. So, you know, I have a question about how this is any different from the first application just on that variable.
Well, I mean, Hammond School is the difference.
Big difference.
You know, I mean,
The other thing I liked about the first one was the fact that it was a small lot directly across the street from an intersection. So, you know, and they were talking about more children in and out in more hours, and you've got a situation there where you had a much more difficult traffic situation. I think that the fact that the backyard backs up to, you know, a school makes the biggest difference between this and the other.
Come closer to your mic.
I think that the fact that the you know, a K through 12 grade school was directly behind this house,
and all the others on the street
has more. I mean, I hear what George is saying also about the appropriateness of the special exception, and its whether it would adversely affect the public interest. In one situation, I understand that, they're concerned, the neighborhood is concerned about property values, I think, as much as anything that I heard, but on the other hand, in the application, I mean, that there is a large neighborhood, and there probably are people with small children that would be able to utilize the services of something like that in their own neighborhood. And that's, kind of where I'm falling on it.
Well, I mean, I would agree. This property has two faces. It faces the school on its backside and the neighborhood on the front side. I would argue that the residential neighborhood is the only side that has a stake in this argument. I don't think the school is impacted, could be potentially impacted one way or the other. And so the question is sort of, does this property belong more to the residential neighborhood or its edge that fronts the school? And I think it belongs to the residential neighborhood more than the school. And secondly, given its position in the residential neighborhood, is it appropriate to be considered for a special exception use? And I think it's deeply embedded in the neighborhood, and I would say no. So I understand what you're saying, but I feel like it's saying that the school has more of an influence and a stake in this, so we're going to allow it than the properties that are actually sort of connected to this one, which are the residential properties.
I guess just in saying that, my two biggest concerns for something like this in a residential neighborhood are the traffic and the number one and number two. And I think that it's not contributing really in this case to where it would make those two items an issue from my standpoint there.
Yeah, Chuck, I don't think the nuisance is as big, 2 to 4 kids, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I mean, when you take a step back from it, and if you're not in the neighborhood, then it doesn't seem like a big deal. But I do agree with George in that this property, if you drive through that neighborhood, and I think it is more belonging to the residents. And I think the common flaw in both this application and the first one is they didn't talk to the neighbors first and try to work something out. And I just have a hard time granting special exception for this one when we didn't for the second one, when there were so many neighbors in opposition to both. I think the cases are different, but...
Yeah, and I the opposition or being for or against something really isn't part of our criteria as far as what we have to go by. I mean, this is our criteria. These are 8 items that we have to really look at, and that's where I'm struggling. Because it's. I mean, the easy thing to do would be to say no because everybody in the room wants us to. But on the other hand, I'm struggling that I can say that based on what the criteria are for the special exception. So
that's kind of where I am with it, Chuck. I run through them, and
so I'd like to make a motion. We'll see what happens. I'll make a motion that we approve this request for a special exception, subject to and stipulated upon the applicant's time being from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. with no more than 4 children at one time no more than 4 children that are not the applicant's children in the home at any time during this those hours of operation, and subject to any other comments in the application by staff.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
No.
That 3 and 2. Josh, was that an aye?
Yes.
Motion carries. There is.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
All right. We'll give them a minute to clear out.
I meant to include that in the
Okay.
situation.
The next item on the agenda is item number 13, case 2019-0062 for 4701 North Main Street, a special exception to allow a shipping container as an accessory storage structure for a convenience store. If the applicant is present, they're welcome to come forward.
Hi, my name is Sarvajit Roma Dillon. I'm here with my father, Parkin Dillon. And we are here for the special exception for the storage, food storage, next to our C-store, which is on 4701 North Main Street.
You can push the mic up if you're,
Okay.
it moves up. So you don't have to
I've
bend
never
over.
been here before, so sorry.
You're good.
I also have some pictures to show you guys.
I can pass those out, and if you want to discuss just your request.
Yes, we just like to have a special exception for the storage tank. It's a container. It's been there for the last 20 years, and all of a sudden, I guess there's a problem with it.
So the container has always been there.
Yes, sir. We have a C-store gas station, and we also have a container that's we just use for our food storage.
Just to make sure I'm clear, you said that the container has been there for 20 years?
Well, we've been in the business for the last 20 years. So there was the container before that. And then we, I guess, after that, I think a couple of years later, we also got another one. So now they're saying that it shouldn't be there.
So you had a container, you got a new container,
Yes, sir.
and when you got the new container, you realized that you were required to have a special exception, which is why you're here.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
It was brought to one of my inspectors' knowledge, and
gotcha.
he discussed the violation with them, and they had to come before the board to rectify.
But this is the same container that's been there.
I think that was replaced,
Got it, okay.
and it's used for food storage,
Yes. For storage,
dry.
C-store products.
There's very limited situations where someone can have a shipping container without an active construction site. It has to be providing actual storage for a limited amount of uses. And a convenience store falls under the food store umbrella, and so that is why they were able to come before you today.
Understood. Well, I don't think that vehicular traffic is an issue, and it doesn't make any noise, the lights or glare. I mean, it's aesthetically probably more pleasing than the one before it. I don't see how it affects the safety or is a nuisance. I don't see it as a proliferation issue. And character intent of the district, which is it's a convenience store and it's allowed with special exception. Okay. Anything further that you would like to say?
We just, like you said, it's not going to make any noise. It doesn't bother anybody. It's safe. It's in great condition.
Yes, I can see that from the photo.
Yes.
Okay. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak in favor or against this application? Is there any questions or from the board? Any discussion? I'd like to make a motion that we approve this special exception based on the testimony in the written application. I believe that the applicant has shown that she meets the criteria for a special exception in this case. This would be subject to all comments and conditions in the application made by staff.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Passes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Moving right along.
The last item on the regular agenda is item number 14. It's case 2019-0064 for 3409 Faro Road, a special exception to reestablish a gasoline service station and convenience store. The cases can be heard together, but it will require two separate motions. This one came before the board in 2017. The gasoline service station was approved, but because it wasn't established in the 12-month period.
They're leaving. Rachel, they just left. Do they know that they're got one more? Pardon?
It's her. She's
Oh,
the applicant
okay.
for this one.
Yeah, we have
It's
an,
Miss Stratton.
we have an error in
There's a typo.
our, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
We were alarmed. We saw a light and we said, hang on.
So, yeah, it's a typo.
Thank you.
Wrong applicant. So Ms. Stratton's here, but it's just coming back before the board for the gasoline service station and convenience store as it has been vacant for 12 months or more. So the applicant is here and is welcome to approach the podium.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Deborah Stratton from Caldwell Banker. I'm representing my clients. Unfortunately, they couldn't be here today. Her mother had an emergency admission into a hospital in Canada, so they're not here. This is a partnership. My one client has been improving commercial properties for over 20 years in Columbia. He likes to purchase dilapidated eyesores and then renovate them into something that's attractive and adds to the community. In your package, I included photos. Can you put up the photos of 2053? You have it in your package. In your package, I included like one of his previous properties so you can see the difference. It's 2053 Two Notch Road. It was vacant for almost 18 years. When I showed it, it had a problem because you had to watch where you stepped. There were always needles and drug paraphernalia from people who broke in during the night. And he renovated that property, and I also included a photo from 2 weeks ago that I just took randomly, where you could see people using that gas station convenience store. The people next door in the incubator were happy to see it because they were happy to have a safe place that they could get gas after hours when they finished closing the incubator at night. If you're familiar with the incubator, it's the office complex to start new businesses that's sponsored by the college. I wanted to put that in there so you could see some of his other work. He has 17 gas stations in Columbia, Sumter, Charleston, and one in Aiken. This is probably going to be a branded gas station. He's negotiating with Shell and Exxon right now to see which one he wanted to go with. As you can see, this building was built just to be a gas station convenience store. He has others. He has never had any grievances against him. He hires always locally. He likes to have one or two people who can walk to the location so that they can keep an eye on it for him. It'll have cameras. He's been involved in some sort of a camera program with the sheriff's department at his other locations. I enclosed the Good Neighbor plan for you. And the other partner in this proposition, she has a rug store that's been a family-owned business in Columbia for over 40 years. Bistini's Rugs, I'm sure you've heard of it. She is currently finishing the remodel of a dilapidated building. It's the old R.H. Lee building on Schoolhouse and Two Notch Road. It's almost completely done, and that'll be the new showroom for Bistini Rugs. She also runs and operates a restaurant that's been in Columbia for well over a decade, Arabesque on Divine Street. They both have been good, responsible business owners, keeping good, clean, upfitted properties. And they both have really good records. I've tried to get a hold of the association person for Colonial Heights, Bruce Sanders. I emailed him and I have called him, and I've never received any response. But as you can see, this was built to be a gas station convenience store. The footprint will stay the same. The driveways will stay the same. In this photo, if you look behind the two lots that make the gas station convenience store, you see like a wooded area between that next lot over. That's also part of the sale. And that will remain as the wooded buffer that it has always been. Houses down in there, you can't really see anything out there. This will be a great gas station for people coming and getting off from the hospital. I included some other photos to show you it's right there for the exit for 277, the ramps for 277. And it'll be a nice addition. When he did that addition at 2053 Two Notch Road, next door to it was a vacant lot that had been vacant forever. After that was a dilapidated building. Once he renovated that gas station, then Dollar General came in and bought the vacant lot, put in a new store, and then another gentleman I sold the next dilapidated building to, and he renovated it and put his business in there and virtually changed the whole block. Do you have any questions for me?
No.
No, ma'am. Rachel, hadn't this come up before us? I think I might be the only one still on the board, but I think this came up one time before, a request for this property.
In 2017, a different applicant came before the board with the same request for a gasoline service station and convenience store. The gasoline service station was approved, the convenience store was denied. But because the service station, the gasoline part of it, has not been initiated in 12 months or more, that's why they're back with both requests again.
Right,
So
a different
again,
applicant.
Different applicant.
Right, okay, perfect. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for your testimony. You can come back up in a minute. Is anyone else here to speak for or against this application?
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Alice Holt, And the area that she mentioned that you could not see on that photo up there is where I live. That's my community. Because it's my community, I fight very hard to keep it a community in which we can live and have a safe environment. The previous owner of that, or the person who operated that service station, convenience liquor store, was an ex-student of mine. And what happened there is that we had the influx of guns, drugs, and everything else that was associated with that convenience service station store. I have lived in that community over, 51 years. And we are homeowners that want to maintain a very safe environment from where we live. Since Eric Osawano left, we have had a decrease in loitering, in decrease in gun violence, a decrease in a number of negative things that impact our community. If you look at where that place is situated, it's across the street from a daycare, kindergarten. It's on a very busy thoroughfare. And in our area, we are saturated with those types of institutions. We have at least 5 convenient service stations. We have 1 liquor store, hard liquor. We have, we're just saturated with those. It's not that we are against businesses coming in, but it's the type of businesses that's coming in and creating a lot of problems for us. I would like to ask this board to deny this request because of the type of institution it is. Are there any other questions you would like to ask me?
Just from a standpoint of the convenience store, it's that loitering and what's the concern, the biggest concern that you have? If it were to reopen as a gasoline station and convenience store?
I can give you at least 6. Walking, littering and loitering, mounds of trash, public urination, increased automobile traffic, loud talking with profane language, and loud music. These are things that should not be if we are to live in an environment that really is conducive to residential living. Thank you. Are there other concerns?
I think you've addressed them. Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Mary Hartz, one of the residents of this area. If you go and stand in front of the place that she's proposing the station, and you look down 1 block, you will see another establishment that sells the same thing. And there's 5 that's in our area. Now, she said something about the people that was going to do this gas station here was going to have an eating establishment. Now, we are not against them putting something in there, but we are against the same thing coming in again because, as Ms. Hope said, we have lived through this, and it's just unfair to us to have to live through it again because we had trouble with the same people that own that property about keeping it clean. The people would come by, throw things out there, and we had a time with them. We went through the city council, both of them, to get them to clean it up. And it, you know, if 2 or 3 bottles down there, they don't consider that to be anything. It has to be just litter, just filthy before they'll do anything about it. And if there was a gas station there when we first moved in, about 1964, but Texaco, I think, was their gas supplier, and there was a grocery store on the other side, so people could stop by and get gas and get food, and they had bread and stuff that they sold. Now, she also said that when you come off of 277, you could go in there and get your gas. But what she didn't tell you was that you can't get back. It's a hard job to get back on that road, to get back, because it's so close to the light. And if they were going to put something there that would benefit the neighborhood, we would welcome that. But we don't feel like this is going to help us, and we feel like our needs are not being met. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else here to speak for or against this application? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Shirley Robinson, and I live on Liberty Street. That's like 3 houses down from where she's talking about. And when I was concerned about all the noise going on, I could sit on my porch back then, and if she get to the store, I know there's gonna be so many cars up there and everything, and they gonna be selling bills, they gonna be selling their little blunts and whatever, and they're gonna have so many people coming and hang around. And I don't want to see that in our neighborhood. We got that going all the way around our neighborhood, and so much going on. And I've been living there over 30-some years, and I know this is going right now in our neighborhood. We got too many stores in every corner of our neighborhood. And just like she said, if we can have something better in our neighborhood, we would love it. We don't even have a grocery store in our neighborhood. We need a grocery store in our neighborhood. We got all these little corner stores. We need a grocery store. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else like to come speak?
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Leon Corlett. I live on High Street in that same community. My wife and I have been there 53 plus years. We raised our family there, our children. They're doing well outside of the city of Columbia. And so much going on in our neighborhood, our children were not encouraged to live there around their parents to make a good living. Now, my wife and I live on High Street. See, when you come down, what is it? Is it Fair Road coming from Bull Street, going toward Spirit Communication Park? You come down past that, get down by St. John Baptist Church. There's where the Marshall Academy, you can't make a left turn. So therefore, the state put that no left turn sign there. So then they channel the traffic down to Liberty Street, where we should live, or High Street. So we have an influx of traffic coming down High Street or Liberty Street. We can't even get a speed bump to slow the car down. I made a picture of the black skid marks on High Street where we was trying to get up our driveway, car come down the street, because we don't have speed humps. We was able to get a stop sign. They stop for it once in a while. The skid marks in the road. So I made a picture, and I'm going further with that to get some relief of the traffic on High Street and Liberty Street already. Now, the 29th of September, now this is a 29203 area, high crime area. And the type facility that is coming into this area not going to be beneficial to the growth and the viability of maintaining a safe environment that you'll be pleased to live in. You can have a a peaceful night, peaceful day if you sit on your front porch. I don't do that anymore. I worked long hours a long time ago before I retired, and I would cut my grass at night because I had good lighting, the street light, and we had a security light. But you have so much drive-by crime nowadays, so I stopped doing that. I didn't feel safe in my community. Now, the 29th of September, I'm a deacon of St. John Baptist Church. Across from where this establishment going to be. And we improving our preparatory school right across the street from there. And we were having outdoor services the 29th of September, which was a few weeks ago. On Sunday morning, they had gunshots in the area. So folks started running and scattering, not wanting to get hit by stray bullets the next block up the street from the church. We can't have outside service in a safe environment. So we don't want this type of establishment coming in that's going to add to a high crime area already. We're trying to clean it up. And the business that are around it, 1 block away, what, an easy spot, they sell gas, but they got the aisle full of beer coolers. And folks coming in there buying it, you see. They want to make money, but then they leave us with the problem. And I'm at a point now where I have a lot more time, and I want to make this situation known further up the ladder.
Thank you.
We're tired of them putting business like this in our neighborhood. It's already at a low point.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to come speak for or against this application? Good. The applicant would like to come back?
I'm sorry that they have crime in the neighborhood, but unfortunately, criminals have cars now, and they get all over, and they're in every neighborhood. This building was designed to be a convenience store gas station. This property, that's all it's been, except for a short stint when there was no gas and someone made a liquor store out of it. These applicants are only going to do beer and wine. It's just going to be a traditional gas station. They don't have loitering at any of their other gas stations. They don't allow loitering. Right now, this is a location for crime. I've been there, sat in my car, afraid to get out until either my client came, the contractor came, the other agent came, sat in my car and watched 2 other cars do drug transactions and sell little things out of little packets to people. Watched a hooker come over looking for business, and then the guys that were selling drugs out of their car made her leave. They didn't want her interfering with what they were doing. So right now it is a place that crime is occurring. Once it's a gas station and people are coming and going, and they'll have cameras, they do supervising, they don't allow loitering, it'll be just like that one 2053. That was a crime location. People were breaking in and doing drugs almost daily in there. And now there isn't any of that along there. Everything's been renovated. There's a new store next door. The building after that's been renovated. This may begin a revitalization of some of these other properties that are along there that could use some work. But it will also get rid of the criminal element that's there every day. You could drive by there and take a look. They're working, that won't be going on. It'll be a nice gas station with good employees. Now, my client, if you ever go to any of his gas stations, he thinks that they should also have a certain amount of grocery items, and he carries a lot of grocery items and household items in his gas station. That one on 2053, one of the people who was really excited about it afterwards is a guy that lives around the corner that can only get around in a wheelchair, and he couldn't get anywhere to get food, and he requested certain items, and then they carried him in that convenience store for him so he could get his groceries and items that he wanted. But I think what they'll find is that this will eliminate the criminal element that's currently there. And if you look even at this aerial photo, there's litter. It's not being maintained because it's not being operated and because people are coming and hanging out all hours of the day and night. This is a good solution. This will clean it up. It will make it so that it's not the negative property for the residents that it currently is. There is no other gas station between Broad River Road and the freeway. If you go more towards Bull Street and you go down 2 blocks, there'll be one going towards downtown. Or if you cross over the highway and you go down a block and a half, there's one on the corner. And then after that, there's none. So this will be a great addition. Plus this property, if you look at it, it's zoned convenience store. It's what it was built to be. It's all it's ever been, other than that short stint as a liquor store. And I can understand the concern over liquor stores, but this will not be a liquor store. They've already been granted their beer and wine license. It will be a traditional convenience store, little grocery mart, gas station.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Would you like to come back one more time? Okay.
As I said before, it's not that I or we or the community is against businesses coming in. The Colonial Heights, which I'm a member of, organization, we are saturated with these types of institutions. And she makes a if what she said actually was reality about what happens after they get established, I would be totally for it. But I've lived there and I know what happens. And before I sit down this time, I want to ask you a question. If it were your neighborhood, would you permit further saturation of these types of institutions? I'd like for you to think about that.
Thank you, ma'am. Would you like to approach one more time? I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
So you live on High Street,
Yes, sir.
and so you pass by this property often, right? How long has it been vacant?
A number of years. And also, and in my head also, I help kind of keep it clean. Make a lot cross on that property she's talking about.
Right.
But the city, sometimes it be a little laxed. And it doesn't look good. In fact, I was out this Saturday. We had a community fellowship Saturday. First time. A lot of folk came. They enjoyed themselves. You ought to do this every year. I wish we could, but we have a foundation that spearheaded that last Saturday. And the people enjoyed it. So we're trying to maintain our community, or bring it back to where it was 50-some plus years when we first moved there. Reason I brought up Broad River Road, now from that point where they were speaking of establishing a gas station and a convenience store, there's one block you can get gas. Easy spot. Used to be the Obama station a long time ago. And down Fair Road, Columbia College Drive, there's a gas station. A little further, there's another gas. Down Bell now, there's gas stations all around. See, we're saturated with gas stations and beer aisles, I would call it. You see, and with foot traffic. Now, when the person that visit this site, when they leave that particular site, where are they going? It's hard to get on Fair Road. They're coming down Liberty Street or they're going down High Street. That's a thoroughfare. We can't hardly get out our driveway now without getting hit. At the point of trying to avoid someone running into you. We have been coming home and they're moving in such a hurry. We're coming home from Fair Road to our street. We're going to make a left turn to go into our driveway. They'll pass us on the left side. So we can't tolerate any more business like this. It's upgrading degrading our neighborhood, and our safety is at risk. We are senior citizens. My wife and I can't afford to go anywhere else and buy a home. So we at your mercy to help us look out for ourselves. Businesses are fine. That's good. In fact, when they first built Spirit Communication Park, we were praying that they would develop that thoroughfare with viable businesses, that you can go get a loaf of bread, or you can go get whatever you want to cook for breakfast or dinner, and that's it. And if somebody wants to get some beer or some liquor, go to somewhere else and get it. Don't come in the neighborhood to buy it and then run down our street and throw your can out the window.
Thank you, sir.
I told my wife, I pray that when I would retire, I'm blessed to go down our street in our community and help keep it clean. And that's what I'm doing. I don't want someone to add to it.
Thank you, sir.
I just wanted to point out that there are two large driveways on Faro Road. There's an ingress and an egress. They're huge driveways. And then there's also a large driveway on Liberty. So it already has plenty of ability for someone to get in or out. And people are going in and out and hanging out there now as more of a hangout, but there's plenty, once it's a gas station, for people to have a smooth traffic flow.
Thank you. Any discussion on the board? Okay. You can come up one more time, and this is the last one, okay? I think we have enough information to make a decision.
I live on Liberty Street, like I said. They have so many accidents that be up in that area, and I have seen it. I mean, on that street back there, have so many accidents, people trying to get out and coming in. It's not going to be smooth, like she say. It's not going to be smooth.
Do you recall how long this property's been vacant?
I don't recall how long. I call him E. Maybe it's, I really don't want to say because it have been vacant for a while. But my problem is with the beer and them blunts that they be selling, it draw people, and we got that all around our area already. And I'm really kind of tired of it, you know. We don't need that in our neighborhood. We got too many, every corner, too many.
That's the biggest concern I have about this whole thing, is there's a lot of them there. Thank you. Okay. Well, I mean, clearly, what we've heard, I think, loud and clear from the neighborhood is, number one, that there is a proliferation already of these businesses in the area. And frankly, I don't see anything, looking at aerial photographs around the number of gas stations up and down the area, in sight of the area and everything else, it really changes that a lot. That makes me think that, you know, it's there. I do feel like I have a lot of empathy for the property owner, because it's a convenience store. I mean, that's what it is. It's designed as a convenience store. That's what the site is. Gas station, let's just say a gas station, a gasoline station. It's hard to do adaptive reuse of that for other purposes. Although obviously it can be done. We've seen that happen as well. So I don't know. Anybody else got any thoughts?
Yeah. A lot of things about this bother me. One thing in particular that occurred to me is the fact that I realize things happen and stuff comes up, but the fact that the potential business owners are not here. I understand that there was an emergency and they couldn't be here, but they could have deferred this a month and given them a chance to come before us themselves and try to give us some comfort that they would address some of these situations that the neighborhood is concerned about. But that really bothers me that they're not here as we're airing out these issues. I think that Chuck, I agree. It is a shame that it's built to be a gas station and a convenience store, but there is no doubt this would absolutely create a proliferation of similar type uses in this area that's already oversaturated, and I think all these issues the neighborhood has brought up, this would just exacerbate the situation. So I have a lot of issues with this particular request.
Any other comments?
As a reminder, because it's two uses under one case, it's going to need to be two motions, one for the gasoline service station and then a separate motion for the convenience store.
Which one goes first?
The gasoline service station is listed first, so if you want to just do it that way, that's fine.
I'd like to make a motion that we deny the request for the gasoline service station based on the fact that there is a proliferation of those businesses in the area and that it would cause an issue with traffic based on the fact that there is a curb cut that goes to a residential street, Liberty Street, and then testimony that we've heard that the commercial users are using Liberty Street and residential streets as a cut through in order to get around the fact that they can't make a left turn on the Hardin Street. So I think that and those two issues are the reason I'm making this motion.
I'll second that.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. I would like to also make a motion that we deny the request for a convenience store based on the exact same two criteria that I just mentioned.
A second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Motion carries.
The final item on the agenda is a discussion. A request has been made by council for us to change our meeting time to later in the day so that more members of the public can attend. I guess some complaints have been coming into them for a while. I believe Krista Hampton had sent you all an email about this, and we heard back from some of you. But we will have to change the day as well because council has Tuesday evenings pretty much locked up. So we're looking at either the first or third Wednesday of the month or first Thursday. And they said no later, or not to go any earlier than 4 and no later than 6. So I proposed 4 o'clock just so we don't cut too far into your all's evenings. Parking might be easier. So, because I know DDRC meets at 4 and they usually don't have as many parking concerns. I know I have heard back from one or two that Wednesday would be very difficult. We would end up most likely losing 1 or 2 members of the board if we went with Wednesday. So just keep in mind as we discuss this, there might be a day that's inconvenient, but if it's feasible with your schedule or if things can be moved around, that's different than just completely not being able to do a day. And also, we have advertised dates through February of next year, so this would not take effect until March of 2020.
When do I roll off the board?
I think September of 2020.
Of next year, 2020. Yes. Okay, thanks.
It's either August or September.
Guess I'm not a big fan.
I was just wondering whether it even affected me or not. I wasn't sure.
It affects you a little bit. Yeah. So, but I just wanted to hear your all's feedback. I know, George, you would be unable to do Wednesdays.
Yeah.
And I don't have all of the emails in front of me. I can't remember who the second person was, but they. it
I'm
might have
pretty
been-
open. It doesn't really affect me much. I don't have kids or soccer practice or anything like that, so I don't, no obligation really in the evening, so whatever works for me.
Yeah, I work on the other side of the
classes
state
and
on
university.
Wednesdays, so I'm literally not in town on Wednesdays. So I would have to resign.
Thursdays, I mean, would be fine with me. I mean, is that,
Yeah, how would you all feel about Thursdays at 4? It would have to be the first Thursday because DDRC is the second Thursday.
Is 4 the earliest possible or acceptable time?
Well, what time? I proposed 4 just so, I mean, it's up to you all if it goes into the evenings. It's just, they said no earlier than 4, starting no later than 6.
other than for no later than 6?
Somewhere in that window. So, because I was thinking starting around 6, just we do have the potential of going kind of late, depending on if it's a 1-hour meeting or one of those surprise 4-hour meetings.
Right, I was
we don't
thinking
get many
that,
of those,
you know,
but just keeping that in mind.
we might be able to get home for supper if we did it start at 4. That was the only thing I was thinking about sometimes, but, you know, it doesn't, I mean, I could do either one, 4 or 5.
Because, I mean, I have to be there no matter what. So it's up to you as to your all's preference. So, because, I mean, you all are volunteering your time, so I want it to be something that you all.
Once a month, so, you know, it's not like it's every Thursday.
Doesn't matter to me.
Thursday at 4? Does that
Yeah,
work?
that works for me. I gotta run.
I'd like to make a motion, then, that the board change its meeting time to the first Thursday of the month at 4 p.m., beginning March of 2020.
A second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
It was like somebody. Here.